What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Everything College Basketball Podcast, episode 222. That is triple deuces for those keeping count at home. I'm, of course, your host, Josh Burton, and joining me again today on this fine Thursday afternoon, March 6th. We are getting ever closer to the elusive Selection Sunday NCAA tournament time beginning. I'm joined by my teammates, Michael DeRosa, head coach Scott Parrott. Gentlemen, we have a big show today. We will be joined later on here in just a little bit by Seth Davis. You guys have seen him on here before last year. You've obviously seen him for a long time on CBS, the CW. He's calling games now, Fox Sports 1. He's kind of expanded his horizons. And think about this. 2 weeks from today, we will be sitting here watching live NCAA tournament action across the first round. This stuff came quick, but man, what a time for college hoops.
March 6th. Yes. Crazy how quick it gets on us. And, every game now is magnified, right? It's like, we talk about that they're all equal, and that's a bunch of bullshit. I mean, the magnifying glass is on so many games. We're obviously going to talk about a lot of them. I'm anxious to get back with Seth. We have a long history, a good story about when we met a long time ago, and obviously pick his brain on what he thinks is going to happen and, do our normal banter here. I'm just glad you two are going to get along now that we're live on the air. I'm excited for the show.
Full disclosure, Michael yelled at me about 4 minutes ago. So I didn't help his audio.
Pre-production tension, gang. We're okay now.
Yeah, when I think of myself as like good at the internet. So when the internet doesn't work with me, then I get angry for some reason. It's like, even though I know how to deal with it, it's like, but I still shouldn't have that problem. So that's on me.
That's the Italian coming out in you.
It is 100%.
You would have been, I would have, yeah. That's the Italian coming out.
If I'm ever really mad, if I really start like moving the hands, like, yeah. But no, happy to be here. I turned on the Missouri Valley, some of the Missouri Valley tournament games. So it's been fun. It's proven time, it's time when the good teams really show themselves. And we might have had another I wouldn't say a merge, but like another national title contender really prove themselves again last night.
Yeah, a team we've talked a lot about this year. We're going to spend a lot of this episode early on talking about the Florida Gators. Got another massive win last night. Like, we have talked a lot about them, so we will get in that here in a little bit. But before Seth comes on here just shortly, here in about 10, 12 minutes or so, I do want to remind everybody we are live like normal on the YouTube, the Facebook, and the Twitter. If you're following along with us live, come hang out, leave your comments, leave your questions. We will get to them, put them on screen as always. We did this last episode where we talked about the SEC and the Big Ten. We kind of brainstormed our all-conference team using the traditional 5 players to make up an all-first team in the conference. We're going to do 2 more again for this episode. We will begin in the Big East. Now, like most of these conferences, there's 2, 3 players, 4 sometimes that really stand out. That's a no-brainer, but it's always when you get down to that last player or 2, it becomes more of a debate. Michael, the Big East is we as we're well documented, you follow more closely than any of us do. I think that there's a couple that really stand out, but I want to hear give me your 5 or players that are deserving of all conference in the Big East this year.
So the Big East, when they do it, they do like the player of the year and then like 6 guys on a team. I don't know how we all feel about like the 6-guy teams but just for the 5, I think the 5 is pretty obvious. I think the 6 spot for the Big East is where it'll get like greasy and where you'll see fans yelling at each other. But for the 5 for me, I think Kalkbrenner is going to be the player of the year. I think it's Eric Dixon. I think it's Cam Jones. I think it's RJ Lewis. And then I think the 5th best guy in the league is Zuby, but that's not how we do it. Right? When we break this down, right, we want to go like position here, position here. I think those 5 will be are the 5, but like if we go position by position, that would leave me with. Does it leave me with a guard? That leaves me with a guard.
Well, if you remember, I think it was SEC last week or on the last episode. We had like 4 guards, so I don't necessarily think it matters position wise.
If we're not doing it, then Zuby.
The 5 best players. I did not have Zuby. Coach and I were talking before you hopped into the lobby. We didn't bring up Zuby. We had some other names kind of floating around.
We had 2 other ones.
Yeah, we had a couple other ones. So interesting. We thought you would say Micah Peavy.
Oh, yeah. Peavy would be my number 6. Yeah.
What about Fremantle?
Fremantle,
he's up there. I think he's a second teamer through and through. It's just sometimes when I'm watching him, every once in a while, he just kind of looks a lot slower than like I remember. Like just kind of have those memories. And sometimes he steps in for a three and it's money, but when he misses bad.
Well,
and it just sticks in my head.
He's averaging 17 and 7 with a 52% field goal percentage and 76 from the line on a team that's probably going to make the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, he's damn good, but like just there's some things he does that don't fully pass my eye test. And I also love Micah Peavy. Like Peavy, I think last month averaged 25, 7, 7, and 3.
He's really good. I mean, like he could be the fifth.
Yeah,
and we didn't even mention any of the Connecticut guys. Like McNeely has had a tremendous year outside being hurt. Caraban's been more up and down. He played really well the other night against Marquette. None of the Connecticut guys you guys think could have a chance at making the first team here?
The injury, you're right, Josh, no. And I think Caraban's been too inconsistent.
Yeah.
I just do. I mean, look, he's really good and we all like him, but I think he's a second team guy.
I think if Caravan makes the first team, it would solely be because he's won 2 national titles. It'd be like a lifetime achievement kind of award.
I think it's fair. We didn't even talk about, because if you look at Ken Pom, 5th in their kind of Big East All-Conference player of the race, or however you want to look at that, Stephen Ashworth is 5th on Ken Pom.
Wow.
We didn't mention Ashworth. I know he is another one that's been up and down, but when he's good, that's when Creighton is good, just because they're so reliant on him.
Yeah.
Do you think he's done enough to crack this first team?
I mean,
go ahead, Coach.
No, his impressive numbers, and they're really good. And I just think the way the Big East this year, Michael, and again, I'm going to defer to you, but I think because the way the league is in terms of balance and strength, I don't think anybody should have two. I don't think anybody's two guys on the first team. And especially a team that didn't win it. So I'll say no to that. But Michael's watched way more than me.
Yeah, I would agree with everything Coach said. I wouldn't be like, if Ashworth was that, because if the Big East, I've said it a couple times, they do 6 guys. If Ashworth was that 6th guy, I'm not going to be too mad. Like, I definitely see the argument for him. Like, I'm not like, it's not going to feel like I got wronged personally. Like, it makes sense just because of how much Creighton needs him to be that guy. Like, how I think his usage rate is like absurd. Like, it's probably highest of any player in the league. So from that perspective, it wouldn't like surprise me. And if Ashworth wasn't on that Creighton team, you take him off, and the backup is Ty Davis, who's a fine player, but he's a freshman who is very clearly not ready for big minutes yet. Just the steep drop off. I can see it, but yeah, I would agree. Ashworth would probably be like the captain of my second team.
So let's put our official list together. So we have we have Cam Jones, we have Eric Dixon, we have Kalkbrenner, RJ Luis, 4 solid. Who would be that last guy or two for certain that we could say, yeah, that's our first team all Big East?
I vote for Peavy.
I think
tell me twice. Don't have to tell me twice. Done.
I think, I completely agree. I think what Peavy, think about that. In the month of February, that stat line he listed off was his average 25, 7, 7, and 3. Come on now.
Absurd.
It's nuts. And then you brought up 6 because that's kind of what the Big East does. Who would be the 6? I know you mentioned Zuby. Like, are we okay with Zuby, or do we go with one of the UConn players?
I'd go Zuby. I think he kind of means a lot to the way St. John's plays. And I think just watching him play, he really can control a lot of these games. Frankly, I could make an argument that I wouldn't make that argument. I take that back. But I really have been impressed by him. I think he's averaging 17 and 7 on the year. I'd have to pull up his stats, but Zuby's been really impressive to me. And I think he is a lock to win Big East most improved player of the year.
He's 14 and 8.
14 and 8. Yeah.
57% from the floor, 14 and 8.
That's pretty good. You would have never thought that coming in from Kansas when he transferred 2 years ago. He was a backup guy, and then now he's a stud starting center on the best team in the Big East. It's crazy.
Even last year he averaged 4 and 3.
Yeah.
No, he's most improved.
Yes, crazy. So what we want to do now is bring on our special guest. He graced us with his presence last year, and we're happy to have back Seth Davis. You see him on CBS for couple decades now. Now he's expanded out to the CW, calling ACC games. He's on Fox Sports 1. Seth, do you not have enough jobs as it is? You're just everywhere.
Well, since you've asked, I don't have enough jobs. Otherwise, I wouldn't, be down in the trenches with you all pitching my services. So weddings, bar mitzvahs, Hamilton, like I got a lot of skills here. So, yeah, but it's, I have 5 weeks left that anybody in America gives a shit what I have to say. So I'm going to talk a lot. And then about April 8th, everybody will be done with me and the world will be a better place. But good to be with you guys.
Seth, how you doing, man?
What's up, Big Scott? Look at you, man.
Good to see you. Huh? I hope it's the last time you see me with a microphone in front of me. So
unless a reporter is talking about why you didn't foul up 3.
There you go. You're right. Yeah. But I've really enjoyed this, actually. Good. These guys have been great, and this space has been a lot of fun. And we text a little bit, but these guys don't know the story. We go way back, right?
Tell them. Artesia.
LaSalle University, summer of 2004.
Sounds about right.
Yep. Artesia High School was in a tournament in the AN1 tournament. There was 8 regions, and we won the West region. And Seth, you were the commentator, the host.
I was the color guy. That was the old CSTV, College Sports Television. It was one of the first, I think the very first game I did for CSTV. They had an executive named John Gerstel. He said, "You want to do color on the ABCD All-Star game?" I said, "Absolutely. That's amazing." I love doing color, someone with my pet and Josh mentioned about my work for the CW, and I've done BTN. I'm looking to press more into that. So yeah, I got assigned to do color for this high school event, and Scott was the coach of the high school. And I do remember they had a young sort of sophomore guard on the team. Everyone said he was like this big time player. And I'm like, this guy's going nowhere. Like he did not. James Harden was his name. So I don't know whatever happened to that guy, if he ever played beyond that game. But obviously when I say you have no future in basketball, you can take that to the bank.
Hey, well, pretty good timing off a 50-point game last night for the old man, huh?
How about that, man? Volume shooter. He's a volume shooter and a volume maker. So
yeah. Look, I know these guys got a lot to talk about with college basketball. I do too. I'll let them ask some questions and we'll circle back.
Michael, you want to go and take it first?
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, this is always something I am usually interested in because, obviously you're on the selection show all the time, and kind of the bit of you. I don't want to say the bit, but and I do the same thing in the room with my buddies too. But the bit of you being on the selection show, it's always they'll break down a team, and then Seth Davis will be like, "Oh, watch out for the upset there." And I do the same thing in the room with my buddies. What is the one team you're looking at this year? If you had to pick right now, they obviously haven't even qualified for the tournament, but who is the one you're looking at to be like, that's the 12 or 13 seed that could make a Sweet 16?
So there are a couple. Yeah, it's a good question, Michael. It's I understand what you're saying when you call it a bit. I really do.
But it's
real,
if you
look mathematically, individually they're obviously upsets, but basically every year you get at least 1 12-5. Now you get at least 1 13-4. There's probably going to be multiples on that. So you got to understand, you can imagine, we only get the bracket 10 minutes before the selection show, if we're lucky. Sometimes it's been made closer to 30, but sometimes it's been, there was one year as we were getting near the top of the selection show, we still didn't have the bracket. They were starting to give us shot sheets for highlights. Can you imagine? Oh, welcome to the selection show. Let's show you what happened in the Missouri Valley Conference Championship game today. Boy, what a great. So I fill out my bracket and it becomes my official bracket for the tournament, in minutes. And I've obviously seen these teams and followed it enough. And I just kind of, do it kind of on the fly. But like I say, I do look at that 12 and 13 line. That's where the upsets are. So individually, it sounds crazy to make the picks, but historically, there's usually at least one. So in terms of the teams that I'm watching, the couple that come to mind, one is UC San Diego. I'm a big believer that winning is a habit. And I really look for teams that didn't just get hot late, didn't just win their conference tournament as a 3 seed, but who really won their league. So, obviously they've done an unbelievable job with that team. But, road win at Utah State early in the year. Tate Jones is a, really dynamic scorer. They play a super entertaining, one of those teams that can just get really hot from three because the ball moves so well. I've been looking a little bit lately at Yale, which is pretty extraordinary because, of course, they beat Auburn last year. Danny Wolf transfers to Michigan. He's an all-conference Big Ten player, leaving Yale. Matt Knowling went to USC. He's been, kind of an important reserve from them. Again, getting good minutes in the Big Ten. Pulakitis, whatever his name is back for Yale. And what James Jones has done there, he's there like 26 years. It's pretty incredible. So that's a team I'm watching. And then also the other one that comes to mind is VCU. A team that can really, grind you up a little bit. Drake I'm looking at. I do like a team like Drake because they play a slow tempo. And I think they can make teams play uncomfortable styles. I think maybe athletically they could get overwhelmed, but those are some. But again, you could kind of throw darts,
yes, exactly.
at the 12 line and the 13 line and say, okay, I'm going to pick 112 and 113. I don't know which one is going to win, but one of them is going to win. So I'll probably end up picking. I might go. I'm thinking, if I could get 2 12s and 2 13. See, the thing about it is, Mike, if you want to really think about the logic of the bit is, you can get 9 out of 10 wrong, but if you hit that one, you're
the first one to say it too. You're the first one.
That's a great point. I do get the first bite at that apple because as soon as that show's over, there's a zillion of us. So that's a good insight on your part, Mike.
Do you think VCU's Elite Eight good?
I mean, they wouldn't be the worst team ever to make a Final Four, right? I mean, we've had 2 teams go from the first 4 to the Final Four. I know you guys don't want to talk about expansion, but it's matchups, it's luck, it's getting hot.
No question.
Yeah. I mean, if you're in that tournament, if you're at the 11 line and above, really, you're good. You have a shot. You have a shot to get to a legitimate shot to get to a Final Four.
Go ahead, Josh. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to add on to that. You can go. And ever since the UMBC upset over Virginia, and then we saw Purdue get taken down by Fairleigh Dickinson, as soon as that 16/1 kind of bubble finally burst on that, anything is possible now. Like anything is possible.
It's like the 4-minute mile.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was like the last thing that I don't know if you can see this. You guys remember I Sharpied Virginia at before the tap. I don't know if you can see this, but I have a banner they sent me for the and unlike Terrence Shannon's banner, that's actually right side up. You can.
That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
Oh, Coach, I thought you had something else there.
No, I just your point about matchups in that tournament is so key. I mean, because look, the SEC is historically strong, right? I'm watching the game last night. I forget which one. And then one of the announcers was saying, wait till these schools aren't playing against each other every night. Like,
right.
It's not like it's going to be an easy break, but there's going to be, there could be a lot of them still standing in that Sweet 16, Seth.
I mean, we could have an all SEC Final Four. Who would that surprise? Nobody. I mean,
no.
Duke is obviously the one in there, but how about Florida?
Well, okay, so I was going to bring that up.
Are we sure Florida's not the best team in the country?
Because, no, I think they could be.
Yeah, because they had those injuries, and Condon was out, and he had 27 last night. Like, I love that dude. Florida's super impressive.
So it's funny you bring up Florida because kind of the theme of today's show is we're going to talk about how good Florida is and how we think they can ultimately cut the nets down in San Antonio. On the Florida aspect of it, they're projected, I think today in most of the bracketologies we've seen, projected up on that 1 line now. And we just talked about it's all matchup dependent. But if you look at almost kind of the perfect blend of modern college basketball, they play a up-tempo style. They have elite guards with elite shot making. They have solid role players like a Condon. They just got Hamilton back. Like, that's kind of like the perfect balance. They're experienced. They've got some young kids who play. Like, they're going to be a handful. Like, they are going to be a handful. But on Florida, we've talked pretty much all year, all of us, about Duke and Auburn. And on this show a couple episodes ago, we posed a question among ourselves. the age old one, would you take this team versus the field? And the question was, would you take Duke and Auburn versus the field? I said the field simply because it's so hard to win 6. I don't care how good Duke, I don't care how good Auburn's been. It's always the field just because the odds are greater that one of the, both.
I'm changing my pick.
I'll ask you. We can even throw Florida in there. 3 teams versus the other 65.
Well, if you're giving me those 3, I'll definitely take those 3.
Wow.
I actually would probably take Auburn and Duke versus the field. I just feel like they have separated themselves for much of the season. I don't quite know what to make about Auburn of late. I mean, they're a little bit of remember now, this is probably before Josh and Mike were born, but Scott's old enough. When Florida won its second title in 2007.
Hey, now I was born in '89. I was in high school at the time.
All right. You're not as young as you look.
No, man.
I was alive then too. I'm in 02. I'm young, not that young.
Mike just got bar mitzvahed last week, it looks like. Florida 07. I'm not going to double check this because I know this is a fact. I think they lost 4 out of 6 in like February. And it was like, what's going on? And when you look back, it's easy to say retroactively, maybe they were just waiting to turn it on. Is Auburn going to do that? Possibly. They've been so far ahead of everybody. This Duke team is like becoming historically great. I think do they have the highest KenPom net rating, I think, in KenPom history? Goes back to 97.
I'd have to go back in history, but they're a 39.37 for now. Auburn's next at 36.4. So
so the Duke team, you could go. We don't have to go through it now, but I'll give you guys this assignment. That the Duke team, somebody said it was the 2015 team. That was the Okafor team. Well, they were 32.48. So Kentucky that year was 36.91.
The Duke 99 team is a 43.01.
43.01. Wow.
That is absurd.
That's interesting. Yeah. Wow.
That's
I was just
Brand
texting with my writer at Hoops HQ that you could make the case that was the best Duke team ever.
Was that who was that? Jay Williams? Who was that?
Elton Brand, Trajan Langdon,
Avery, Corey Maggette. They lost to UConn in the championship
UConn title.
Yep.
Trajan Langdon.
Yep. Trajan Langdon. Rip Hamilton was on that UConn team.
Right.
So yeah.
And Khalid El-Amin.
Oh, yeah.
It's funny is Khalid El-Amin worked with us for a while at CBS Sports Network, and he was always being introduced as the Final Four MOP, like all season long. And we're joined by the 1999 Final Four most outstanding player all year long. We got to like the last week of the tournament, and they realized, I guess it was Hamilton or somebody else won the MOP. And so the host of the Elements said, we've been IDing all you as the MOP. Why don't you correct us? He goes, I should have been.
That's really good.
What was Seth, to that point, though, I've always said, though, going back to the X team or couple teams versus the field, it's not often in this tournament, with as crazy and as hard and random as it can be, that the best teams even make the Final Four, let alone win a title. Like, I think about, and I know last year you could make the case all year long that Connecticut, Purdue, completely fine with that. But it's you almost have to go back to, I think, 2005, to where we got Illinois, North Carolina, the clear best teams all year long that year. And I think Wake Forest was good that year, but it was North Carolina, Illinois. They met in the title game. Every year, basically, it's like this team and this team are the two best. They're separating themselves, and then they get knocked out in the Sweet 16, or they get knocked out in the Elite 8. All I'm saying is, like, yeah, Auburn Duke has been great this year in Florida as well, but who's to say with these matchups and how random it is, you have a bad shooting night, they're not gone before we even get to the Elite 8. That's all I'm posing.
And that what makes the tournament great. By the way, I would say Gonzaga Baylor in the bubble.
Oh yes, a couple years ago. Yeah, that's right.
But no, there's no question that more often than not it doesn't. That's why it's like it's very important to always remind people, like, this tournament we're not about identifying the best team, and so any talk about the tournament, whether you're predicting or whether you're whatever. And again, when we talk about expansion, like, we need to understand what the NCAA tournament is all about. We're not identifying the best team. We're holding the best tournament. And so, yeah, one bad night, injury, flu virus, girlfriend breaks up, any of these, and really match up, bad luck, bad whistle, foul trouble, any of these things can trip up a team. It's what makes it amazing.
Yeah. Seth, I got something for you, just for the people listening too, because I think it can go inside a little more. Like when these tournaments, like on the first Thursday and the first Friday and Saturday and Sunday, what's your world like? Seriously, like how many hours a day are you in there? I mean, and you have like a cool room with all these teams. Like, is it what we all want to think it is?
Yeah, it's so much fun. First of all, it's exhausting.
I bet.
Remember, so, I cover the first four for True TV. So I'll be in the studio Tuesday night. So we'll have a very late, and then we do like post-game shows. So we got a doubleheader Tuesday night. That's a late night. So now, I can kind of sleep in on Wednesday, get my workout in, do my million things that I got to do, write stuff for Hoops HQ and yada, yada, yada. Then we work Wednesday again. That's a late night. Now, Thursday morning, I'm in there early, getting ready, production meeting, makeup, wardrobe, on the set, pregame, game, all the way through, post-game at the end of the night. And by the way, doing it again Friday morning. Now, in the Atlanta studio, really by the time we get through Friday, it becomes a lot easier because we don't go on the air. CBS starts the days on Saturday and Sunday with those 1-game windows. So, we don't hit the air until Saturday night. But those first, it's really, and it's all about like, and people say about how do you prepare? Like I'm obviously not cramming, I follow the sport. I'm immersed in it 12 months a year. I've often said, like, I feel like I spent all year preparing for that first week, it's much more about keeping your energy up, your focus, getting my sleep, my workouts, eating well. I'll take meditation breaks during the day if I can steal 15, 20 minutes just to kind of, recharge, and a little espresso and energy drinks. And it's just, but yeah, so there's like a viewing room with TV. They actually have like Barca loungers, like, I guess for Barkley and Shaq and those guys. But if you sit down in like a comfy chair, you got to go to sleep. So I'm more likely to be up. I'm more likely to maybe watch in the studio and just try to stay busy. And, I say get through it, but you're not getting through it because you're having so much fun. It never really feels like work.
And with the other hosts, like you watch it with them because, you always want somebody, what are you watching?
100%. Yeah.
Same things we all do. Right. I mean,
yeah. And not just the on-air folks, the camera folks and the producers and the researchers. And that's really like the biggest difference between writing and television. Writing at the end of the day is going to be just you and your laptop, and the television is more team sport. And so that becomes the energy is great. It's a lot of fun.
Seth, I was just sitting here jogging my memory while we were all talking, and I think you were in the studio for this. If not, it kind of blows my question. But I go back to that 2012 NCAA tournament, the one that Kentucky won. But I remember Ohio made a run as a 13 seed, and obviously Clark is in studio, and his son Nick played on that team. And I remember the spot when they beat South Florida. They cut to Clark, and he's obviously overcome with emotion and stuff. Were you in the studio for that? And if you were and got to talk to Clark, how was that? Because that had to have been cool as hell.
So you might be misremembering, because my recollection is that Clark was calling games at that point.
Okay.
There was a time when Greg Anthony was in the studio and Clark was calling games.
You're right about that. Yeah.
And so that raised the situation. I don't speak for Clark, but again, my memory is a little fuzzy, but I think they may have asked him once they made the Sweet 16, like, do you want to call their games? Like, well, we can make that happen. And I think between Clark and Alex, they just kind of decided, or it may have been Nick, actually, now that I think it was Nick.
It was Nick, yeah.
It was Nick. Okay, there you go. Somehow they decided that wasn't going to happen, but he was courtside watching the game, is what I think you remember.
They did a cutaway to him. Yes, that's right.
Him, showed him watching the game, watching the game from courtside. But it was really cool living through that. And I think that Nick may have been like the max all-time leading scorer at some point or something. I remember kind of going through that with him. But we've each seen our kids grow up, so it's kind of he's like legitimately, and I say the same thing about Greg, legitimately one of my best friends. I mean, he's not just a workaholic. I mean, he's legitimately one of my best friends.
One that I know you guys have worked together a long time. That's why brought that up, and you're right. He was calling the games at the time, but I do remember them cutting away to him. And I remember that Sweet 16, they played North Carolina really good, like really good. Carolina got away from it at the end. Michael, I know you have something before we start to wrap up here.
Yeah, you've talked about it a couple of times, and I remember reading the first Hoops HQ thing you put out. It was like you wanted to be like a home for like a younger writer. So what is, to our audience who might know or might not know, what is Hoops HQ? And why is this like the new project that you're really on?
Hoops HQ is a media content platform website that is fully dedicated 12 months a year to covering men's and women's college basketball. And so we are leveraging my contacts and my brand and my editorial judgment to marshal a staff and a team. We've been on the air, we've been live since late October. So this is our first time through making all these, plans to cover the NCAA tournament. I will tell you, as much as we are efforting covering the tournament, and in a lot of ways, the tournament might be the worst time of year for us, because that's the time when everybody's covered. I don't even consider the tournament to be college basketball. I think of it as a separate sport. But like we are making plans to cover the transfer portal and all that free agency and the coaching changes and everything going on there. Right up into the NBA draft, which is kind of a college story, and then right into recruiting and what have you. So we are a paywalled site. We are having a 68% off sale now. So it's a good time to get a subscription. I think it's like $19 for a year. You get all of our content. And, I'm very optimistic because, as you guys know, you guys are college basketball junkies. The sort of mainstream media companies are not really covering college basketball with a lot of oomph for folks like us. And there are a lot of folks like us. So I hope everybody goes to hoopshq.com and checks us out.
What gave you the idea?
Well, I was approached by a longtime buddy of mine who works for a company in New York City called Inside Hook, and they had done this before. And he just kind of came up. I'd always wanted to do this, Scott. I started to do it at The Athletic, and The Athletic grew so fast that my role just became, hey man, just type as fast as you can. And that became my value to the company, which obviously I was happy to do. But I just think in today's media environment, there's been so much disruption, and everybody talks about the downsides of that, and there are downsides, but it's also great opportunities. It's given the boom to what we call the creator economy, and I think creators are kind of linking together and bundling up and serving niche audiences. So college basketball is a niche audience, but it's a pretty big niche and a very passionate and enthusiastic niche. So we're working really hard to serve that audience as best as we can.
I think it's really cool. And I do think football's done a good job now, right, with the off-season stuff, right? College football. And so you have some great things like you'll be able to do, like you brought up. The draft is really, people want to know where their guys are getting, going to be picked, and and all these fan bases, et cetera. So and in summer recruiting, of course, is always a big deal.
Well, like in the NBA, like the free agents, summer free agency is the most exciting time of the NBA. The playoffs are great and the season is what it is, but free agency is chaotic and exciting, and everybody has hope. Around the draft, everybody has hope, unless you're a Wizards fan like me. Although
same here.
Are you a Wizards fan, Mike?
Yeah, from DC, born and raised.
I was, I interviewed Cooper Flagg a couple of weeks ago. Oh, there you go. I just bought, I just flipped my club head covers from Nationals to Commanders. So that was big. But I interviewed Cooper Flagg a couple of weeks ago for Fox. He walked in. I said, "You look pretty good in a Wizards uniform." I could see that happening. We'll lose the lottery. Is there any doubt we're not winning the lottery? There's no doubt in my mind. I have no doubt we're not winning the lottery.
Oh man, Seth, you're the best, man. Look,
I appreciate you guys.
We appreciate you coming on. I honestly, I hope you're doing a show. I get hired and you can say it on the air. That
all right. Can I get the scoop? Can I beat John Rothstein for one scoop?
Yes, you're getting it.
Okay. How about that?
Perfect. Seth, Thanks, we appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Seth. We appreciate it. Yep. That was Seth Davis, man. The second time on. He was great last year. He was even better this time. Again, another one of these guys that love college hoops. A lot of knowledge and experience that you could just talk to. And I that was a great question, Michael. That was very professional, by the way, teeing up about his business. But no, it sounds like a really cool thing that they got going on there, and they're trying to build upon to talk college hoops just all through. It's kind of what we do, but there's, a little different, but just we need more people that love and talk college hoops, and Seth's been around for a long time. So I thought that was really good.
Yeah, we mentioned it a couple times, and I remember reading like the very first piece, and it was like, this is for like any young writer who wants to get a start. It's like, I'm young. I might end up having to reach out to him after this one.
You should
like
do
it. So easy to talk to. So many times, like I know I've heard stories, so I could probably speak personally, but I don't need to at this point in time. I don't want to start drama. But like, you talk to some people like in the media or whatever, like, and like media people, you have an ego, right? Like you go on, you have to feel like people need to hear what I have to say. That's kind of what like media is at some point. Like if you see like someone coming on TV, like they want their voice heard because I'm important. Seth Davis doesn't give that vibe at all. He's just willing to talk ball with anybody, anytime, anywhere. And I respect that so much.
Yeah, it was awesome. Yeah, it was awesome.
I'll never forget that tournament. I mean, I was a young, that was my third or fourth year at Artesian. Brought the boys across country to Philly and sit down for an interview. And there was Seth Davis interviewing me. And we've kidded and joked about it now for 20 years. And so I was happy to tell that story too. He's the best. And hopefully our audience to get the inside of how much fun that is that those guys have doing that stuff, even though they're on the air, sharing it with everybody too. They're fans just like everybody else. I mean, going nuts and cheering and can't can't believe it. And, it was fun. She's great.
Well, it's cool to see a guy like Seth too, because that's where obviously we want to take ours at and be right there with them doing that stuff. So it's really cool. Seth was awesome. I hope you guys enjoyed that. We will save the Big 12 because we don't have enough time to get to that and other stuff. We will save the Big 12 for Sunday, the all-conference team. We've got to get in some action. Real quick, Jai Lucas, we talked about it a couple weeks ago. He is officially the Miami head coach. Coach, I want to talk to you just real quick, get your thoughts, because it's an unusual kind of football circumstance here. Yep. Not only is he taken over, which isn't unusual, but after Duke Carolina this Saturday, he has gone from Duke heading straight to Miami. That's the football-like scenario. He's not waiting till the end of the year for a team that we just talked about with Seth that could go win a title. Unprecedented is the word I'll use for this kind of situation in college basketball.
Which will soon become precedented. Yep. Because as weird as this is, the first time anything happens, it's unusual, and we all kind of go, oh my gosh. Well, if this is the way college basketball is going to be with this transfer portal and NIL, it makes perfect sense. I mean, it's a shame in a way for Jai. It really is, because he has no choice. I mean, he has to hit the ground. He has to get a team, but he's going to lose out on a chance to be a coach on a national championship team. And that's once in a lifetime sometimes. So that stinks for him. Then it also stinks for Coach Shire. I mean, he's losing a valuable member of his staff at a time it's most critical to have everybody oars in the water. So the whole thing, it just stinks for both of them, even though I'm really happy for him to get the job.
Yeah, I think the interesting part to me, I don't know the interest because he's a Duke staff. They're not a team I follow up like that, but just how would they go about game planning then in the future? Like, I'm assuming Lucas, I don't know if he handled a couple scouts, but like, let's say he's the guy that was in charge of some scouts, especially on like a short turnaround. It's like you got 2 days. You want to have like that routine ready for when you're planning from a Sweet 16 to an Elite 8. If you have to take a quick scout on, say, Tennessee, that's a team that you want to be as prepared for as possible.
Michael, what if they do it differently and he's in charge of the offense or in charge of the defense?
Yeah.
See, that's how I did it. So I changed from individual scouts to an offensive guy, a defensive guy. They'd each come to me. We can do the game plans and we go. I mean, I don't know how Duke does it, but it's all bad.
Yeah.
It's a wild, wild west time in college basketball, and it's extended to the coaching searches now. So best of luck, Jai Lucas. That's a big opportunity. Miami seems like they've got a good one. It's just it's a weird scenario. Let's get into some of the action. We've titled this. We talked about Florida with Seth. I think it's only fair we begin our reviews talking about what Florida did on the road in Tuscaloosa, Coleman Coliseum last night against Alabama. It was a battle of top 10 teams. You had number 5 Florida going into Tuscaloosa and beating number 6 ranked Alabama 99-94. Alex Condon gets Ken Palm MVP with 27-10. on the road. Walter Clayton pitches in 22. Thomas Huff gets 12, and they just get another balanced scoring performance. Florida scoring. This game went about like everybody expected. Two high-scoring, high-tempo teams, high-possession teams put up a lot of points, not a lot of defense, but I'll say it, and I've said it before, and I'll keep saying it. When you play offenses that are this elite, it's going to be hard to get stops. I don't care how good your defense can be at times. This was an entertaining game, Coach. Florida just put a stamp with what we've been saying for all year, basically. This team can go win a national championship legitimately in April in San Antonio. What a win for the Gators.
So I actually called my friend, Carlin Hartman is one of the assistants for Florida. And I called him this morning, waited until he got a little sleep. But then I just told him how much I love watching this team, those guys play. And he was just like, he said, calls me Coach P. He's like, Coach P, like, they're so fun to coach. Like, we're very connected, and like all the little things that are going to matter. Like, you know what I mean? So to hear that is awesome. He was just, they've sold me. They are really fun to watch. I mean, they're versatile. They beat you a variety of ways. And like we talked about with Seth and all these, they're playing well right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Alex Condon was awesome last night.
Unbelievable.
He was great, man.
It was terrific. Yeah. And it felt like anytime really, just looking at the box score, it's Elijah Martin finished with 10. Will Richard finished with 8. I feel like, this is not true, but I feel like just when I watch back the highlights, I feel like every single time they scored, it was a dunk. Like they were just throwing down a dunk, likely over top of somebody for those two. They just got out in transition so well. They found their running lanes, but yet Condon was spectacular. Florida's amazing. This team is really, really good.
Bama got 30 for Mark Sears. It was not enough on senior night, by the way, down there in Tuscaloosa. Look, this was going to be a very interesting game. You're not going to feel bad for either team because they are top 10 teams. What this did for Florida, though, as long as they win on Saturday against Ole Miss, they will be the 2 seed in the SEC tournament, which we've talked about forever now, the importance of that. This drops Alabama to a 3, potentially with a loss on Saturday to Auburn, could drop them a little bit further than that. So this loss obviously hurt Alabama more than it would have maybe a couple weeks ago. But Alabama now has lost 4 of their last 6. Now, again, they've played Auburn, Missouri.
We talked
Kentucky.
about that, yeah.
Yeah, the schedule the last 7 we've talked about was brutal. But they've lost 4 of their last 6. Any concern about the Tide, knowing that they've got Auburn on the road on Saturday, could make it 5 of 7 heading into Nashville next week. Any concern that maybe some cracks in Alabama or anything at all?
My only concern is that they may not be as good as Florida and Auburn.
Yeah.
That might be my only concern.
Isn't that crazy? You can be a potential 1 seed and not be as good as the 2 teams ahead of you in the league. That's how good this league's been this year. It's crazy, Michael.
Yeah, I agreed with everything. I think if there's a 1 seed, because I think Alabama's projected on the 1 line at this point, I think if there's a 1 seed I'd want to play, of which you obviously don't want to play any of them, but I think if there is one I'd want to play, it is Alabama. I think they're the most vulnerable. However, I also think that could be a very big be careful what you wish for scenario. And if you're like a Creighton and you're like, oh, yes, we got the Alabama draw, we're really excited, then you show up back, and then what? You're 12 minutes into the game, you're down by 25. Like that also could very much happen. But I think if there's any 1 seed I want to play, I think it's Alabama.
Well, we've talked about Alabama. Hope that they miss from 3 early. You get out to a hot start and then dominate them on the backboard. That's how you beat them. I've pulled up here for those watching along live. Our good friend NKY Bracketology, Hunter over there, sent us his updated seed list from 11:30 this morning. You see the 1 lines. Florida bumps into that final 1 spot. Tennessee and Alabama are on the 2 lines now. He has St. John's as a 2. So we'll keep this up and reference it the rest of the show, coming back and forth to it. But great win for Florida. They can absolutely cut the nets down here in about a month's time in San Antonio for their 3rd national championship. Florida is the absolute real deal. Let's go through a couple other results from this early part of the week here that really stand out. We talked about Auburn. This was a classic case of a trap game, Coach. They clinched the SEC outright with a win at Kentucky on Saturday and an Alabama loss to Tennessee. They go on the road to play a desperate top 25 Texas A&M, who had lost 4 in a row on their senior day. And it looked like an Auburn team that maybe had celebrated a little too much because A&M punched them in the mouth from the word go, played physical, played A&M style basketball, and got a massive win to stop the bleeding, 83-72 of the number 1 team. To me, Coach, you can tell me if I'm wrong on this. Auburn looked like a team, like I said, who looked like maybe they celebrated a little too much, and they were looking ahead to this Alabama game that obviously has a whole lot of importance, and maybe looked ahead a little too early past Texas A&M. And A&M's a really good team despite losing 4 in a row.
My counter to that would be A, that's possible. It's not impossible. But B, the response would be probably there's just a lot of really good damn teams in that league.
Yeah.
And if you're not playing your best, you can get beat, and especially on their home floor. And that's what happened. They A&M was, at their best or close to their best or whatever when they needed to be. I'll call Auburn, maybe like you said, maybe there was a tinge of a emotional hangover there. And they got their butts beat. And in that league, there's no room for error. I mean, it's so thin. You can't even see between my fingers. And usually, that it's really thin. It's so maybe I think that's probably why.
Michael, do you think Auburn was maybe just kind of didn't come out with their full A game? We'll put it that way.
Yeah, I think so. This isn't a game that really, and we think A&M's a very good team. So this isn't a game to me that changes what I think of either team. But one thing that jumps out to me, and I was just looking at it as you guys were talking, Texas A&M got 60% of their own offensive rebounds.
And that's what they're great at, right?
Yeah,
I mean, they're great at it.
They're great at, and then looking at it, Auburn's 14th in defensive rebounding rate in the SEC. So I think if there's any area that they're going to get beat in the tournament, which it's kind of weird for how that team is constructed, right? Because they're playing Broome and Cardwell a lot at the same time, and they're able to make that work offensively, despite both kind of being like big bodies who want to get you on the interior. Them not being a good defensive rebounding team, it could be something that could bite them. 1 and 2, just kind of doesn't make sense to me, but the data shows.
Here's what I'll say about Auburn so
Please.
We can move on. You talked about how they could potentially get tripped up in the NCAA tournament. If you look at Auburn, if you withstand their first punch or first even 2 punches of a game, and you're right there in their face and you don't fall and go down for the count, they kind of get rattled by that. They've been so dominant that they'll come out, boom, 20-3 run, game's over with. But the teams who've hung in tight, thrown counters back at them, like South Carolina had them down in South Carolina. Vandy had them down because they kept throwing counters and they didn't go away. If you can just hang and withstand Auburn runs, you've got a real good shot at beating them, because I don't think that they're a real good hammer. I don't know if they're a real good nail. So a couple others, just real quick. BYU continues to be one of the hottest teams in the country. All of a sudden, number 24 BYU goes to Hilton Coliseum and takes down number 9 Iowa State in overtime, 88-85. What do we make of BYU besides that the Mormons have got hot all of a sudden?
Well, that was a great college basketball game, first of all. I happened to watch most of the second half. Was it double overtime or single?
I think it was just single.
It went to double OT, right?
Okay, well, I didn't add the double.
Yeah, double OT. Yeah, double
okay,
OT.
my bad.
I mean, so it's just an incredible game. And yes, BYU is like, who wants to play them? And oh, goodness. Talk about peaking. So great win in Hilton. Iowa State, played well too. It wasn't like they played like crap. It was an unbelievable game.
Yeah, Iowa State, when they made that comeback, I was quite certain Iowa State was going to win. Keita's rim protection in this game for BYU was excellent. They really needed him out there, and he altered so many shots around the rim. And Richie Saunders was, I didn't expect him to be as good as he has been this year.
By the way, great inbounds play on the layup he missed to send it to double overtime. Great inbounds play on the keeper, and he had the reverse and just couldn't finish it. Good defense, but great play.
Yeah, BYU I think is Xavier if they end up getting to the tournament, and BYU to me scream the 2 teams you do not want in your little
call. That's a good call. I like that. BYU's got red hot all of a sudden, so we'll see if they. I will say I did. We talked about this in our group chat the other night. You mentioned how hot they are. I'd hate to play them. They do scream a little. I always call everybody Iowa because they've done it so many times over the years where they get red hot at the end of the year, everybody buys into them, and then they go out in the first round. I would be very wary of BYU because we've seen them struggle against physical teams who can really hit the backboard. Bad matchup in the first round. Just keep an eye on it. We'll see what happens when selection Sunday comes and the brackets are revealed. But BYU screams one of those teams to me that's very Iowa-ish from years past. Bubble teams, just real quick. Oklahoma gets a win over Missouri. Texas gets a win over Mississippi State on the road. Georgia, I think, off the bubble. They've done enough the last couple games. I think they're solidly in the NCAA tournament. North Carolina continues to win. They need it. They beat up on Virginia Tech. Baylor gets a win at TCU. They're still in the tournament, but I don't like their odds, like as far as doing anything. Oregon beats Indiana. That Indiana had the lead late, and then Jackson Shelstead, like for the 50th time this year, hits a 30-footer with a hand in his face. Late, under a minute to go, gives Oregon the lead. Indiana couldn't score. Oregon pulls away. Really good ball game. Ohio State also on the bubble, competing for one of those last spots. Double OT thriller in Columbus, 116-114 over Nebraska. They needed the win. That sets up a huge Saturday showdown with Indiana, probably winner in, loser out matchup to keep an eye on. Arkansas goes to Vanderbilt and puts it on the Commodores 90-77. Coach, of all those bubble teams I mentioned, who did themselves the biggest favor and who maybe hurt themselves over the course of the early part of the week here?
Well, I think you hit it with, I think Oklahoma probably did themselves the biggest favor.
Yep.
Now, I also think that game Saturday night in Austin is going to be is huge.
That's
Oklahoma
another winner in, loser out, probably, right?
I think you're right. I do. Look, Texas wins. They're still maybe not guaranteed in, but it helps them. I mean, maybe. So, yeah, I could be close, Josh. I agree. So I think Oklahoma helped themselves the most.
Well, we see Hunter has Texas as of this morning with the last four of the first four out, if that makes sense. So basically, they are team 72 instead of in the field 68. So a win against Oklahoma and maybe one of these other results like the Ohio State Indiana game, maybe Texas is in with a win. We'll see what happens.
Could be. Yep.
Michael, bubble teams, who did themselves the biggest favor? Is it Oklahoma? I mean, that's a huge win. They needed it.
I think it's either Oklahoma or Texas winning. Like that, Texas just stayed alive with that win over Mississippi State and Starkville. Just looking at his bracket though, Indiana versus Xavier and Dayton. That'd be kind of interesting. That'd be a very interesting
IU fans travel well. Yeah. Xavier, that would be incredible.
Yeah, those two teams. That's probably what whoever's running the site at Dayton. That's probably the game they'd want to see. Those two.
Yeah.
Or if you can get,
I want to see, that'd be great.
Yeah. It would be a ton of fun too.
Or Ohio State Xavier, we've seen projected.
Yeah.
Let's look ahead.
Keep in mind, real quick, is bid stealers. That's still a factor here. That you could see a bid stolen. That's going to take the bubble down a little bit. So I think we do have to keep that in mind.
You're right.
My team like Texas still really fighting an uphill battle. But
great point. That's a great point too. And we won't know until these conference tournaments next week, where the power ones really start to play out. That's a great point. Let's look ahead to the final weekend of college basketball in the regular season. We will save the MVC tournament, who started today. We'll save that for here in a little bit, or Sunday if need be. Let's start with the big one. Number 6, Alabama on the road at number 1, Auburn. If you remember a couple weeks ago when these two teams matched up in a 1v2 game in Tuscaloosa, Auburn led from start to finish. Alabama never had the lead for even 1 second. It was domination from the Tigers. We talked about just a few minutes ago, Auburn maybe got caught with their pants down, looking ahead to this Saturday. A&M got them earlier in the week on Tuesday. But you don't think that the Auburn Tigers are going to be riled up and ready to go for their rival to chance to sweep them and really rub it in? I think Auburn is going to put a show on Saturday down there on the plains in front of the jungle. Coach, what do you see when you see this matchup?
Boy, oh boy. Just another, heavyweight fight of in this league, kind of to wrap up an incredible year in the league. And I was really high on Alabama. Obviously, this stretch of games is absurd. I mean, it is one of the most unbelievable gauntlets of games I have ever seen a college team play in a regular season. So I think eventually it's going to catch up to them, where they just lose one by 12, 15, 18, and it could be against Auburn on Saturday.
Yeah,
Okay,
the
go
way
ahead.
Auburn controlled that first game. I mean, they just had it from tip to finish. Like, really, it felt like Alabama didn't have any answers, though. Obviously, Alabama wasn't hitting shots, but like, it just kind of felt like Auburn was completely in control. And then Alabama started to like wake up once the game got down, but Auburn made another punch. I think we get the sweep here. I got Auburn in the spot.
Yeah, so keep in mind too, SEC tournament seeding on the line here for Alabama in particular. They can't get the 2 seed now, but they're in a hell of a battle for the 3 seed. They're only 1 game up on Tennessee. Tennessee plays home or hosts to South Carolina, a game that they should win. Alabama loses this. That puts both teams in the regular season at a 12-6 mark. If Tennessee was to leapfrog Alabama, that moves Alabama to the 4 seed, which means them and Auburn in a semifinal as opposed to potentially matching up on Sunday against Auburn. So you want to be that 3 seed. You want to avoid Auburn as long as possible in this SEC tournament and hope maybe even somebody upsets them before you even have to play them again. I've got Auburn. Look, Auburn, I think they're going to be really pissed off at their performance the other night. They're going to bounce back. It'll be curious. Alabama, that first 8-minute segment, coach, is going to be paramount for the Crimson Tide.
Yeah. Take the swings. You're going to have to stand your ground.
If they find themselves down big early, let's say they're down 23-8, 23-7, it's over with. I don't think they can come back and make it a game. Auburn will suffocate them. I've got the Tigers sweeping the Crimson Tide and making things real interesting heading into Nashville next week. Number 2, Duke on the road at North Carolina on Saturday in a game that's North Carolina, who's won, 6 in a row, 7 in a row now. They need this win. I know that they're right there on the tournament bubble. They need a win. If they get a win against Duke, most bracketologists project Carolina will be in the NCAA tournament. Duke will, if with a win, will likely be the new number 1 team in the final regular season poll and probably the overall number 1 seed heading into the NCAA tournament. So there's a lot at stake for both teams. Not to mention it's a rivalry game. Michael, can Carolina nut up and get the biggest win of their season to save their NCAA tournament hopes and make it where they don't have to necessarily go to the ACC tournament next week and reel off 2 or 3 wins?
No.
Wow.
That's it. Yeah, Duke's going to kill him.
I am saving mine for bank on it.
Oh, that's always a good sign when coach says that. That's always a good sign. I'll be short and sweet. Carolina needs this win. The Dean Dome should be rocking. Carolina, obviously, we know no post player presence really. That means guards have to play. RJ Davis has been a Duke killer before. He's got to do it again. I'm going upset. I think Carolina needs the win.
Whoa.
Will find a win. RJ Davis masterclass, 37 points, maybe even a game winner.
He might need 37.
Look, he's probably going to need it, but I think this is one backs against the wall. Carolina gets it. The crowd wills them to victory. How about this for nothing really at the line? This is an interesting matchup in the Big East on Saturday. Number 7, St. John's on the road at number 22, Marquette. The Johnnies have already wrapped up the Big East regular season title. So you look at it and say, what more do they have to play for? You don't want to get hurt heading into the tournament play. You've already got the league wrapped up, but you also want to keep winning because as we see in Hunter's bracketology, they're up to a 2 seed now. So you can improve your seed and have the best opportunity to make a run in March. Michael, Marquette needs the win. Do the Johnnies come out and really put boots to ass here? Or is it kind of one like whatever happens, happens. Let's just be healthy heading into Madison Square Garden next week?
I think Marquette really needs this one to build some momentum because, I mean, they've been really since January 18th, the game they lost to Xavier, they've been just on this one-way track going the wrong way. Like their best win in that time is Villanova at home. Okay, great. I thought they played fairly well in that first St. John's game. I thought like their offense was just kind of clicking. They were one of the only teams that's really able to like effectively get dribble penetration against St. John's with a lot of one-on-one ball, only 9 assists from Marquette, which is pretty rare. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not confident in this game whatsoever, but I don't think I'm going to pick against the Johnnies, despite the spot screaming. This could be it's full sleep spot for St. John's, but I still think they find a way.
There's still a possibility with a loss to St. John's and a Xavier win that Marquette could fall to the 5 seed, meaning they wouldn't even get that first round bye. Coach,
Really
what do you see?
4-5 in the Big East. 4 and 5 play each other in the Big East.
Oh, you're right. You're right. Yeah, you're right about that.
Two teams going in different directions. And look, I just think Pitino's Pitino. He don't care what game, who, what, when. They're going to be play. They're going to come in to win, and I think they're going to win. So I'll take the Johnnies too.
Yeah, I think we'll go clean sweep St. John's. Tough building to go get a win up at the Marquette. We've talked about it a lot, but I don't like where Marquette's at. And if Cam Jones don't go have 20-some points and really dominate the game, we know how good St. John's defense has been. And we talked about Zuby Ejiofor, which was a great shout out. I don't know if Marquette has somebody that can defend him and what he brings to the table. So I'm going St. John's for a season sweep here and making things really interesting for Marquette and in the regular season. We talked about the bubble-licious games. Give me a prediction on all three. Oklahoma at Texas, Ohio State, Indiana, probably both those games, winner in, loser out at the NCAA tournament for the time being. And then Arkansas, who's currently projected in after their win against Vanderbilt, who's back in. They play host to Mississippi State. A win would solidify a bid. A loss puts them right back teetering on the bubble and makes things interesting heading into Nashville next week. Give me kind of predictions on all three real quick.
I got Texas, Ohio State, Arkansas.
Michael?
All three home teams for me.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm going to go too. I think I'm going to go Trey Johnson kills Oklahoma, makes things real interesting for Texas. I got Indiana. They played Oregon really good. They've been playing their best basketball. They go for the season sweep over Ohio State on Saturday. They need the win, put them in for sure. I think they get it. And then Arkansas, I don't like where Mississippi State's at right now. I just don't like it. And Arkansas will defend them. And I've got Arkansas winning and solidifying the spot for them. Gives them, I think, 5 or 6 Q1. So that should be enough to keep them in. Let's round out, go to bank on it here. I've got a parlay again. I think you guys may like it. Friday night, tomorrow night, Illinois plays host to Purdue in a Big Ten showdown. Both teams have kind of been struggling the last month of the season, not been at their best, especially Illinois. You got seeding on the line. Purdue is currently in a 3-way tie with Wisconsin, Maryland for the final 4 spots there. In the final 4 spots for a double bye in the Big Ten tournament. A loss could send them having to play a day earlier instead of getting that double bye. Illinois, with a win and a UCLA loss, can move up a line, so there's a lot of implications. I've got Illinois at home dominating Purdue. I think they need a big-time performance to make people feel good about them again heading into the Big Ten and NCAA tournament. Illinois at home smacks Purdue by 10+. The other one is in the SoCon tournament. The 5-seed Furman will play the 4-seed Samford in the quarterfinals. I think that's Saturday. I've got Furman taking down Samford to move on to the semis. But not only that, with the loss, that'll mark the last game Bucky McMillan coaches at Samford because he's linked to Florida State and other high major jobs. I think he's due for a big call-up. I think Furman wins. That'll be the last game Bucky McMillan coaches at Samford. Bank on.
That's like a triple parlay. That you even threw in a coaching search there. That's impressive. I love it. All right, Michael, I just want to know, do you have any idea yet, or you want me to go?
You can go first. I do know what I'm going to do, though.
Oh, I'm excited about that. Okay, here, Duke, Carolina. Here's what I think. My bank on it is we're getting a classic Duke Carolina game. We may even get a buzzer beater. Carolina's going to make them sweat all the way to the end, but I got Duke by maybe at the buzzer.
Oh, who was it? Rivers that one year. Well, Austin Rivers hit the game winner. So it was in Carolina too. Yep. So maybe get a Cooper Flag 29-footer at the buzzer is what you're saying?
Maybe.
Austin Rivers was calling a Butler game this year. Like it just kind of like stunned me. I
didn't know he did college basketball.
I didn't either. I had no idea. And then I saw it's like Austin Rivers. That's Austin Rivers? What? Mm-hmm. But I got 2. I want to stick. I want to stick to some of these low major games, some of these conference tournament games. There's one tonight that I really like. I wouldn't do a parlay, but since this game's in an hour, if people are listening in post, I'm going to do a parlay. I think Purdue Fort Wayne beats the crap out of Youngstown tonight.
Yes, let's go. I like it.
Jalen Jackson's coming back from injury for Purdue Fort Wayne seemingly, and it seems like the leading scorer at Youngstown is not going to play in this game. Youngstown is favored in this game. The wrong team is favored. I think Purdue Fort Wayne smacks them. And then there's some injury concerns here too. That's my narrative. Jackson Money is a potential NBA player at North Dakota State. There's some concerns. We don't know if he's going to play or not. And as a result, I think it's an early exit for a North Dakota State team that is everybody's darling in the Summit League, that beat my Butler Bulldogs this year, that I saw them in person. I saw them in Hinkle at how good they are. I think they get punched in the mouth without Jackson Money. If you lose an NBA player as a Summit League team, I think you're going to lose in the first round. I think South Dakota gets them.
I like it, man. Let's go to shout outs and round out today's show. Look, it's only right for me to do it because we had him on Sunday, but shout out to Lenny Acuff, Coach Lenny Acuff and his Lipscomb Bisons. They won their opening round game. If you remember, they're the 1 seed in the Atlantic Sun Conference tournament. They played Central Arkansas, who had won on Sunday. They blew out Central Arkansas. Joe Anderson was phenomenal in that game. I think he had like 28, 29 points in that ball game. They play in the semifinals tonight against Queens. They win that. They will move on to the A-Sun Tournament Championship Final. Got to give a shout out to Lipscomb. I hope they have a good performance. We'll say that against Queens tonight. Illinois State, before we went live just a couple hours ago, the opening round of the Missouri Valley Conference Tournament, they hit a game winner with like 6 seconds remaining on a layup. It was a layup. It was a putback layup or a layup, however that went.
It was a dump off to a layup, yeah.
Dump off layup. There you go. To knock out Indiana State. Game 1 of the Missouri Valley Conference, and we already get a game winner. Shout out to Illinois State and the Redbirds for that. Shout out to the Kentucky Media Department. It's either the media or the PR, whichever one. They're kind of the same, I think. For those awesome senior day videos where the 6 seniors called their younger selves, and it was a cool video. If you've not seen it, go search it out. It is really cool. I got emotional because how kind of the human side of everything, and listen to these guys talk to themselves and be like, hey, 10-year-old Lamont, remember that team we were watching, that Kentucky team with John Wall? Well, guess what? You're him now. Like, you're playing for Kentucky. It's really cool. Go watch it. It's a job well done by the media department at Kentucky. And then Terrence Edwards, 35 points and an 85-68 win over Cal last night for Louisville. 4 different Louisville Cardinals this year have went over 30-plus points. Terrence Edwards made it 4 last night. They went nuts over Cal. Louisville projected to probably be anywhere from a 6 to 8 seed, but they're going to be a handful for whoever they have to play in the NCAA tournament. So those are my shout-outs, Coach. I'll let you go now.
I just have one. I'm going to shout out Rice has a game tonight, their final home game. And I have a kid that I recruited, Alim Husinovich, is playing his final home game at Rice tonight. Obviously, in the situation, I cannot be there at the game, but I'm shouting out Alim. He is one of my favorite kids I've had the fortune to coach, and I hope he has a great game in his last home game.
I love that.
Yeah, I just got a couple. One, Malachi Davis at LIU had 35 points in their first round of the NEC Conference Tournament game. They knocked Chicago State out, and it's Chicago State season. Shout out to Malachi Davis dropping 35. Tough week for Chicago State. Did you guys see the Chicago State game before this one? Quincy Allen is a player there. He hits a 3 to tie the game up. Whoever they were playing, I don't remember who, gets the ball in transition like they're trying to score like a quick bucket. Quincy Allen jumps the passing lane, gets a steal, open court, like 5 seconds left, goes up for a dunk to win the game, misses it, they lose it.
Oh, that's brutal.
Yeah, brutal.
That's brutal.
Yeah.
Oh, my worst nightmare.
I can only imagine what the poor coach was feeling. But yeah, shout out Malachi Davis, really quick guard. I don't know. I mean, he'd be fun in like those 16 versus 16 games if LAU does make it that far. And then the other one, Donovan Dent had 33 points the other night. 33.7 assists. He is special. If you haven't watched Donovan Dent play this year, please make time. Make time. We're not going to get many more games of Donovan Dent. Actually, I think he could come back. But regardless, there's a chance we don't get many more games of Donovan Dent. He might go pro, portal, whatever. Watch Donovan Dent in New Mexico if you can.
Yeah, hopefully New Mexico can see themselves dancing, whether it's with the AQ or an at-large bid. We need more Mountain West representation. But, man, what a show today. We went a little over, but that's because we had a great guest on today. We appreciate everybody tuning in on this fine Thursday afternoon, as always, to hop in and watch with us. 2 weeks from today, we will not be having a show because we'll be watching college hoops. in the NCAA tournament. What a time to be alive. We appreciate everybody who tuned in today that we'll watch down the road later on today or tonight, tomorrow, whenever that may be. Again, thank you to Seth Davis for hopping back on with us. He was awesome as always. And for everybody here at ECB, we appreciate you. I will be in Evansville on Saturday live to see the first bid punch for the NCAA tournament, covering the OVC tournament. I will have live exclusives on our YouTube channel, on the Twitter. Keep up to date with ECB for updates coming out of that. But until Sunday, when we're going to talk about bids being punched, the Missouri Valley Conference Tournament Championship about to be played, and a whole lot more. We hope you guys enjoyed this, and we will catch you guys down the road. Peace.